to make wild plum taffy, or you may call it sugar plum taffy if you like. Here are the wild plums. We have picked, these came from near the very end of the picking season. The picking season starts about Labor Day in Nebraska. And we've picked all different qualities of plums. A lot of these came right off the ground. We don't have to throw these away. We don't have to leave them out there. As you'll see as we go through the process, the bad parts can be cut out. The finished product will end up looking something like this, and it is very tasty. Very tasty. And I call it taffy. That's about the consistency of it. It's just very tart, as if it's filled with vitamin C, and has a very good flavor. But that's what we're working towards. So we'll start with the plums. If you're concerned about the cleanliness of the plums, you can soak them in mild solution sodium hypochlorite, which is bleach. But all I've done with these is rinse them, and as long as I get them squeaky clean, it's the friction that actually cleans the germs off of any kind of a surface. It's the friction. So I just work until they're squeaky clean in this pan of water. It'd be better if it were running water. That way the germs would be washed away that we're concerned about. But anyway, this is about as clean as I get them. Next thing I do is cut them in half. The reason I cut them in half is because they lay flat on the sheet like this, and it prevents the bottom side from oxidizing as I finish the work. So I've split all the way down to the seed around, completely around, and I twist the two halves apart. The seed stays in one half. The other half I just place ready to do the second step over here. I work the seed out of that half and place the other half. I'm going to do one more here and explain something else about my cut. As I cut through, I cut so that the seed is easily removed. So I find this line here. There's a line that delineates where the seed, the side of the seed is. I want to cut so that I have a point of that seed exposed. So I don't want to cut right along the line, because then that seed, I have to dig it out. So I want to cut slightly beside that at an angle. So here's where the stem came out of the plum. I just want to cut at an angle to that, work it around. Get my two halves, and that leaves part of that seed pointing out, as you can see. So I've got the seed pointing out, easily removed that way. Once you get your plums all laid out like this, again, you could do it all in one step that we're doing, but it leaves a lot of plum flesh out here exposed while you're working to be oxidized. And I like to just do this final step all in one fell swoop, and so there's less oxidation of the fruit. So what we've got to pull the fruit out with, the flesh out with, the 97-cent ice cream scoop from Walmart works just fine. In fact, I'll do some right now. It's a little bit of a technique, and you have to use some muscle there, but it comes out by scraping the inside of the skin up against one of the edges. And these can be dried as is, just one piece like that. But the fruit juice is going to come out of these during the drying process, and it's going to flow around and stick all these things together. So might as well decide how big of a piece you want that's going to be stuck together, and make 5-6 inches worth of plums that'll stick together each in their own juices. And then you'll separate the next row from these by maybe 1.5 inches, because that juice will come out 1/2 inch from either side and cause the others to stick. So we can work again one more with the ice cream scoop from Walmart. We just work that flush out, scrape it right against the skin there, and line that up. Now I also have a salt and pepper shaker body that's plastic, bendable, and it conforms a whole lot better to the shape of the plum if I care to do that. Plus it is a little bit sharper than the ice cream scoop. Now one thing I did try that did not work is a spoon, like a teaspoon or a tablespoon measuring spoon that has a flat top. That did not work. I think the reason is it just tried to, it did not enter underneath the skin as gradually as this shape would. It tried to pick that whole area and go into the skin there, and it just simply was too much. So even though this is flat, like I'm talking about, I'll squeeze it, and then I can enter in underneath that skin gradually, and I like this better. This works better. And so we will piggyback all of these together in strips. We can do this quickly. If I did one plum at a time, from cleaning, cutting in half, taking the seed out, and scooping it out, and laying it over here, by the time I filled this pan, these first ones would have been oxidizing, and a change in color, a darkening comes with that. However, once you get these lined up, as many as you can fill the pan, you put these into an oven. It'd be nice if the oven had a circulator to circulate the air, so drying oven would be nice. We don't have such a thing here, so when we put them in our oven, they'll take a whole lot longer. You don't want to get the temperature up too high. It just darkens them way too much. It caramelizes. Not that there's any problem, but that's not what we're trying for here. So we want to keep the temperature low, about 140 would be our top temperature. However, when they're drying, when they're wet like this, you can actually turn the oven temperature up to 200 or thereabouts, maybe 175, and the fruit itself won't get to that temperature until it dries out a bit. Anyway, we've got these. I'll pull these out of the oven to show you where we're at on the previous. So this, I've got this set down to probably 135, so I can barely touch, you know, the temperature is barely cool enough for me to handle this, otherwise it'd be a bit hot. As you can see, I've lined these up, and these are not completely done at all, but you can see how the juice has flowed out of them. And this is a Teflon, or non-stick, let's just say that, a non-stick finish there. That's what you need for the pans, is non-stick. Actually, probably a smaller pan is easier to work with on these, simply because it just takes so long to fill a large pan like this. And once these have dried substantially, they will actually be darker, so they'll look like that, and they are very tasty. The seeds, in this manner, the seeds don't get killed by boiling them and mashing them. The seeds are alive and able to be planted, And what I've got going here is a previous plate of seeds sitting drying on a burner that is the vent for the oven. So the oven heat will come up through the stovetop. One of the burners will be a vent for your oven, and that's where you want to set your plate of seeds to dry during this process. And another thing, if you don't want to make the taffy out of this, you can just put the fruit pieces right in the freezer, just like we've done here. These are frozen, and they're quite delicious. I'll get a whole plate full here. Whole plate full. They're quite delicious, so work these out. If you leave them in the freezer for a long enough period of time, they'll probably get freezer burnt, which will put a distracting taste in there. So I would caution against just leaving them in the freezer for more than a month, probably, unless you sprinkle them with a fine mist of water over the top, and that should seal it. Make sure it's almost cold, almost frozen. The temperature, the water you want to sprinkle on there or mist on there should freeze quickly. It needs to freeze quickly, so make sure it's cold. And that could put a fine layer of ice or a thick layer of ice. It'll preserve that from being freezer burnt. Then you have your snacks. Have I forgotten anything? These plums were found as I was driving along the road. You just learn to recognize the bushes. The deer also enjoy these wild plums, so if they're next to a field that has been planted with corn that year, large enough field, the deer will be so distracted by the corn that they will leave plenty of plums for you. If the field has been planted by soybeans that year, farmers rotate between soybeans and corn on their fields. So a soybean year, that particular thicket would be probably all eaten up come Labor Day or soon thereafter. The picking period goes from about Labor Day for about 3 weeks. And that date depends on when the blossoms were set, but normally that's about mid-April. Mid-April is the time to actually find the bushes. Thank you for watching this video.